5 words changed everything. I did not hear them clearly, but I saw what they did. Vincent's lawyer leaned close and whispered, and the confident man I had been married to for 15 years went completely still. His face lost its color. His hands began to shake. The papers he had been so eager to sign trembled in his grip. Across the courtroom, I watched in silence. For the first time in 3 years, I smiled. But that moment only makes sense if you understand how we reached it, how a woman everyone believed was broken quietly prepared for the end long before anyone else saw it coming. My name is Alexis Dunst. I am 34 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was married to Vincent Mercer. From the outside, our life looked successful. A growing business, a large house, expensive cars, and a marriage that people assumed was stable because it had lasted so long. 15 years sounds impressive when you say it out loud. What people did not see was how carefully that image was maintained or who was doing the work to keep it standing. I met Vincent when I was 17. I had just finished high school early and taken a job as a file clerk at a small law firm. The pay was low, the work was dull, but it gave me independence. By the time I turned 18, I had already moved up to legal assistant because I paid attention, stayed quiet, and learned quickly. Vincent was 24 when we met at a client event. He was charming, confident, and talked endlessly about his future. He said he was going to build something big, something impressive. I believed him. I married him at 19. Our son Tyler was born the following year. I worked part-time, raised our child, and managed our home while Vincent chased opportunities. When his real estate business finally started moving, he asked me to quit my job and help him full-time. He said he needed someone he could trust. I became that person. I handled the books, the schedules, the clients, the contractors, and the details he never wanted to deal with. I did it without a title and without a salary. I told myself this was what partnership looked like. For years, I stayed in the background while Vincent took the credit. At events, I was introduced as his wife. At celebrations, he thanked his team, his mentors, and his vision. My name was rarely mentioned. Slowly, decisions stopped including me. He stayed out later. He criticized small things that had never mattered before. By the time he asked for the divorce, he already believed I had nothing without him. The night he told me he wanted to end our marriage, he did not sound angry or sad. He sounded prepared. He said he wanted the house, the business, the cars, and everything else. He said I could keep Tyler. I sat there listening, already understanding that this conversation had started long before I knew it was coming. What Vincent did not know was that I had also been preparing, quietly, patiently, and for much longer than he realized. After that night, everything moved fast, but it did not feel sudden. It felt planned. Vincent did not leave the house. He moved me into the guest room like it was a temporary adjustment, something practical. The next morning, my credit card stopped working. By evening, the joint account was restricted. He said it was better to separate finances early to avoid confusion. He spoke calmly, like a man managing a project, not ending a marriage. Within days, papers appeared on the kitchen counter. Draft agreements, asset lists, timelines. He already had a lawyer. He had already decided what belonged to him and what did not. I watched him flip through documents with confidence, never asking questions, never checking details. He assumed everything was exactly as he believed it to be. His mother arrived the following week. Lorraine Mercer did not knock. She walked in as if the house already belonged to her son alone. She told me I should have tried harder, that men like Vincent needed appreciation and support. She said it gently, but her meaning was clear. This was my failure. She stayed for hours, observing, judging, and quietly taking control. By the time she left, she had decided what I would be allowed to keep and what I would not. A few days later, Vincent brought her into the house, the woman from his office, younger, confident, already comfortable. She walked through my kitchen like she had been there before. Vincent did not explain. He did not need to. He wanted me to see it. He wanted me to understand how replaceable I was. The humiliation was steady, not dramatic. Small things disappeared. My access, my space, my authority. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. Decisions were made without me. Vincent spoke about the future as if I were already gone. He told people I was taking the divorce well, that I was being reasonable. He liked that version of the story. I packed quietly when he suggested I should find somewhere else to stay. Lorraine supervised, sorting my belongings into piles. What mattered to me did not matter to her. Jewelry stayed, furniture stayed, anything valuable stayed. My things were placed into garbage bags and stacked by the door. Vincent did not watch, he did not need to. Through all of this, I acted exactly as they expected. I did not argue, I did not demand. I did not fight. I listened, nodded, and complied. Every reaction I gave reinforced the image they already had of me. A woman who had lost everything and did not know what to do next. What none of them realized was that I was not confused. I was watching. And while they were busy taking control of my life, they were forgetting something important. I had spent years managing Vincent's business, years handling his records, years seeing things he never bothered to look at himself. And long before he asked for the divorce, I had already seen something that would change how this story ended. The first person I called after Vincent told me about the divorce was my best friend, Diane. We had known each other since high school, 20 years of shared history. She answered on the first ring and listened while I spoke in broken sentences. She sounded shocked, angry on my behalf, completely supportive. She told me I deserved better. She said Vincent would regret this. At the time, I believed her. Vincent, meanwhile, settled into his new role with ease. He spoke to lawyers, adjusted schedules, and explained the situation to Tyler in private conversations I was never part of. He told our son that adults sometimes grow apart, that I was struggling to accept reality, that he was trying to keep things peaceful. Tyler stopped asking me questions. He started watching me carefully, like he was trying to understand who I was becoming. Within 2 weeks, I was no longer sleeping in the house. Vincent said it would be better for everyone if Tyler stayed in a stable environment. He said I was welcome to visit. The word visit stayed with me. I moved into a small apartment and brought only what I had been allowed to take. Tyler's room filled with boxes we could not unpack. It looked temporary, and that was the point. Vincent wanted me to feel unsettled. At the same time, his life became louder. New clothes, expensive dinners, social media posts about new beginnings and positive energy. People congratulated him. They told him how strong he was. They told him he was handling everything with dignity. I heard these things through mutual friends, through comments, through silence where support should have been. Diane kept checking in. She asked where I was living, what lawyer I had hired, what I planned to ask for. Each time I answered vaguely, Vincent seemed to know anyway. When I mentioned fighting for the house, Tyler repeated his father's exact words back to me the next day. When I talked about possible neighborhoods, Vincent commented on them before I had spoken to him. Slowly, the pattern became impossible to ignore. I remembered moments from the past that suddenly made sense. Diane's attention when Vincent entered a room, the way she defended him when I complained, how she always asked about him first. I realized she was not just listening to me, she was reporting back. My closest friend had chosen sides, and it was not mine. The worst part was Tyler. He was caught in the middle, absorbing explanations that painted me as the obstacle. I watched confusion replace trust. I watched distance grow where closeness used to be. Losing the house felt painful. Losing money felt unfair. Watching my son doubt me felt dangerous. That was when I finally hired a lawyer. Nina Castellano was direct and sharp. She told me I was entitled to half of everything. She told me we could fight and win. I listened carefully, then told her I did not want to fight. She looked at me like she did not understand what she was seeing. Everyone thought I was giving up. They did not know that I had already been waiting for this moment for 3 years. 3 years earlier, on a night Vincent said he would be home late, I stayed up finishing the company accounts. This was normal. I had been doing the books for years, handling invoices, reconciling payments, making sure nothing slipped through. That night, something did not line up. A transfer appeared that I did not recognize, then another. The amounts were not small and they were not random. They followed a pattern. I did not confront him. I kept going. I pulled statements, checked older records, traced the movement of money across accounts Vincent never mentioned. Hours passed without me noticing. By the time I stopped, it was early morning, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with numbers spread in front of me that did not make sense. The house we lived in was not paid off. It had been used as collateral more than once. Loans had been taken quietly, stacked on top of each other. The business accounts were worse. Credit lines pushed to their limits, payments delayed and reshuffled to keep everything looking stable. The image Vincent showed the world did not match what the records were saying. I kept digging over the next several weeks. Every answer led to another question. Money disappearing into investments that no longer existed. Payments tied to expenses that never came home. Commitments that relied on constant borrowing just to stay afloat. The success Vincent talked about was built on debt, and there was more of it than I could explain away. I printed everything, I copied files, I saved statements. I did not panic and I did not tell anyone. I understood something important in that moment. If Vincent knew I had seen this, he would react. He would control it, explain it, or erase it. Silence was safer than confrontation. Instead of exposing him, I protected myself. I separated what was mine and kept it untouched. I documented every detail and stored copies where Vincent could never reach them. I learned how deep the problem really was, and then I waited. For 3 years, I said nothing. I watched Vincent spend freely. I listened to him talk about growth and expansion. I smiled at events while knowing the foundation underneath was already cracked. I learned patience. I learned restraint. I learned how easy it is for people to underestimate someone they believe is dependent. So when Vincent demanded the house, the business, and everything else during the divorce, I understood something he did not. He was not asking for assets. He was asking for responsibility. He just had no idea what he was about to take. Once the divorce process officially started, Vincent changed. The confidence he showed in public turned into carelessness behind closed doors. He stopped pretending to be cautious. He stopped checking details. He believed the outcome was already decided. Every conversation, every meeting, every document moved in his favor, and that made him reckless. During mediation, I stayed quiet. I spoke slowly, hesitated often, and asked for very little. I said I did not want conflict. I said I was tired. I said I just wanted enough to start over. Each time I lowered my expectations, Vincent relaxed a little more. He began talking openly in front of me, discussing future plans as if the past no longer mattered. He told his lawyer I would not fight. He told his mother I had accepted defeat. He told friends I was being reasonable. That word followed me everywhere. Reasonable. To them, it meant weak. To me, it meant invisible. The settlement discussions moved quickly. Vincent wanted everything finalized fast. He said delays were unnecessary. He wanted full ownership of the house, the business, and all associated accounts. He did not ask what came with them. He did not ask for explanations. He assumed ownership meant value. Behind the scenes, Nina prepared the documents carefully. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just standard agreements, written clearly, reviewed properly, and structured exactly as the law allowed. Assets were listed. Liabilities were attached. Everything Vincent wanted was included. Everything he ignored was included too. Vincent signed early drafts without reading. He joked about lawyers overcomplicating things. He said he knew his own finances better than anyone. When his lawyer suggested reviewing numbers more closely, Vincent refused. He said audits were a waste of time. He said he built the business himself. He said he knew what he was doing. I watched all of this quietly. I showed no resistance. I never corrected him. I never warned him. Every assumption he made worked in my favor. At home, his life grew louder. He spent money freely, celebrated early, and talked about freedom like it had already arrived. He did not notice how often I was asked to confirm details. He did not notice how carefully I answered. He did not notice that the story he believed was missing critical parts. By the time the final hearing was scheduled, Vincent believed he had already won. He believed I would walk away with almost nothing. He believed the chapter was closed. What he did not understand was that the most important part of the agreement was not what he was gaining. It was what he was agreeing to carry alone. The weeks leading up to the final hearing felt quiet on the surface, but everything underneath was tightening. Vincent stopped pretending to care what I thought. He talked freely in front of me, complained about delays, complained about lawyers, complained about how long it was taking to move on with his life. He wanted the divorce finished, clean and fast, and he wanted control of everything that came with it. His lawyer raised concerns once. Just once. I was sitting in the room when it happened. He suggested reviewing the financial disclosures again, said it would be safer to confirm values before signing. Vincent shut it down immediately. He said there was nothing to review. He said he knew exactly what he owned. He said he did not need anyone checking his work. That decision mattered more than he realized. After that, no one questioned anything. Documents moved forward, dates were fixed. The final hearing was scheduled. Vincent started celebrating early. He bought himself expensive things and talked openly about selling assets later at a profit. He acted like the divorce was a formality, not a legal ending with consequences. People around him followed his confidence. His mother spoke as if the outcome was guaranteed. Diane stopped calling as often. She already had the information she needed. Vincent stopped being careful because he believed there was nothing left to protect. Tyler noticed the cracks before anyone else. He saw the spending. He heard the excuses. He watched his father talk about money and then refuse simple expenses. One evening, he asked me quietly if his father was actually doing as well as he claimed. I did not answer directly. I told him to pay attention and trust what he saw. Behind the scenes, Nina finalized the paperwork. Every page was correct. Every number was documented. Nothing was hidden, nothing was exaggerated. Everything Vincent had built, borrowed, and ignored was listed exactly as it existed. There was no drama in it, just facts. The night before the hearing, Vincent sent me a message thanking me for not making things difficult. I read it twice. 15 years reduced to a sentence. I replied that I only wanted what was best for our son. That was true, even if he did not understand what it meant yet. By the time we walked into the courtroom the next morning, Vincent believed the story was already over. He believed I had lost. He believed the future belonged to him. He did not know the agreement he was about to sign would turn that belief into a problem he could not undo. The courtroom was quiet when we walked in, the kind of quiet that makes every movement feel louder than it should. Vincent arrived first, confident and relaxed, dressed like a man closing a deal. He shook hands with his lawyer and smiled. He did not look at me. He did not need to. In his mind, the outcome was already decided. I arrived a few minutes later with Nina. I kept my head down and my voice low. I looked like someone who had nothing left to argue. That mattered. People treat you differently when they believe you are finished. The judge reviewed the case briefly and asked if both parties had reached an agreement. Vincent's lawyer confirmed it quickly. Assets would transfer to Vincent. The house, the business, the vehicles, everything. In return, I would receive a small cash settlement and shared custody of Tyler. It sounded simple when spoken aloud. The judge turned to me and asked if I understood what I was giving up. I said yes. She asked if anyone had pressured me. I said no. She asked if I was certain. I said I wanted it over. Each answer closed another door behind Vincent without him realizing it. The documents were passed across the table. Vincent signed fast, barely slowing down. Page after page, signature after signature. He was impatient, eager to finish. I signed slowly, carefully. I knew exactly what each page meant. I knew what he was taking responsibility for with every stroke of his pen. Halfway through, Vincent's lawyer stopped. He leaned closer to the paperwork and frowned. He flipped a page back, then forward again. His expression changed, not suddenly, but enough for me to notice. He leaned toward Vincent and spoke quietly. Vincent waved him off. He said they were almost done. He said there was no need to slow things down now. The lawyer insisted. He whispered again, this time longer. Vincent finally glanced at the page his lawyer was pointing to. His smile faded. He read the numbers once, then again. His hand tightened around the pen. He looked up, confused, then angry. He said something was wrong. He said the numbers did not make sense. The judge asked him to sit down and explain himself. That was when his lawyer spoke clearly, not quietly anymore. He said Vincent was assuming all liabilities tied to the assets. Mortgages, loans, business debts, everything listed in the disclosure. Vincent looked at me then, not with anger, with realization. He finally understood what he had taken. And it was already too late to give it back. Vincent stood up before the judge could finish speaking. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, breaking the calm he had walked in with. He said the numbers were wrong. He said I had hidden things from him. He said this was not what he agreed to. His voice kept rising as if volume could change what was written on the page. The judge told him to sit down. She asked him a simple question. Did he read the agreement before signing it? Vincent hesitated. He said he trusted his lawyer. He said he knew his own business. He said he did not think there was anything to question. His lawyer spoke next. Calm, clear. He told the court that he had advised Vincent to conduct a full financial review before finalizing the agreement. He said Vincent refused. He said Vincent signed a waiver confirming that decision. The waiver was handed to the judge. Vincent stared at it like he had never seen it before. The judge read it carefully, then looked directly at him. She asked if the signature on the page was his. He said yes. She asked if he had been represented by legal counsel at the time. He said yes. She asked if anyone forced him to sign. He said no. The room went quiet again. The judge explained that the agreement clearly stated Vincent was assuming all assets and all liabilities connected to them. She explained that debts tied to property do not disappear because someone failed to pay attention. She explained that declining review does not erase responsibility. Vincent tried again. He said he did not understand what he was signing. He said it was unfair. He said I had known more than him. That was when the judge turned to me and asked if I had hidden anything from the court. I answered calmly. I said every document provided was accurate. I said the disclosures came from company records Vincent himself had authorized. I said nothing had been altered or concealed. The judge accepted that without hesitation. Vincent looked at me then, really looked at me, not like a wife, not like someone beneath him, like someone he had completely misjudged. He said my name softly, like it was a question. I did not respond. The judge made her ruling. The agreement stood, assets transferred, liabilities transferred, the marriage dissolved. The sound of the gavel ended everything Vincent believed was secure. He sat back down slowly, staring at the papers in front of him. His future was now printed in numbers he could not escape. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, Vincent began arguing with his lawyer, his voice breaking, demanding explanations that no longer mattered. I did not look back. The moment he lost control was the moment the story truly ended for him. The collapse did not take long. It started the moment Vincent walked out of the courtroom. His confidence did not return. It never would. His lawyer spoke to him urgently in the hallway, explaining consequences Vincent should have understood months earlier. Vincent argued back, louder, desperate, insisting there had to be a way to undo it. There was not. By the end of the day, the first phone calls began. Banks asking questions, lenders requesting confirmations. Accounts flagged for review. The assets Vincent had fought so hard to keep came with obligations that could no longer be delayed or hidden. Payments that had been shuffled for years were now fully his responsibility. The girlfriend disappeared first. She did not make an announcement. She did not argue. She packed quietly and left before the week ended. Vincent tried calling her. She did not answer. The version of him she believed in no longer existed. The house followed. Vincent attempted to sell it quickly, convinced a fast sale would solve everything. It did not. The numbers did not work. Buyers walked away once the debt surfaced. Banks stopped negotiating. Missed payments became notices. Notices became threats. The business unraveled next. Vendors demanded payment. Credit lines were frozen. Contracts collapsed once confidence disappeared. The same people who had praised Vincent's success now asked questions he could not answer. Lawsuits followed, one after another. His mother started calling family members, explaining, defending, asking for help. The story changed every time it was told. Nothing stuck. The debts were real. The signatures were his. I heard about all of it from a distance. I did not ask for updates. They arrived anyway. People talk when something impressive fails. They talk even more when they realize they ignored warning signs. Tyler noticed too. He saw his father cancel plans. He heard excuses. He watched the image fall apart piece by piece. He did not ask me questions anymore. He watched and understood on his own. Weeks later, Vincent tried to contact me. The messages were short at first. Confused, defensive, then apologetic. then urgent. He said he did not know things were this bad. He said mistakes were made. He said we should talk. I did not reply. Because the part Vincent still did not understand was simple. The damage was not the collapse. The damage was that he had asked for everything and signed for it willingly. And now, for the first time in his life, there was no one left to manage the consequences for him. Vincent showed up at my apartment one evening without warning. He did not call first. He stood outside the door longer than necessary, like he was trying to decide which version of himself to present. When I opened it, he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically weaker, just reduced. The certainty was gone. He said he did not know it would turn out like this. He said he made bad decisions. He said he trusted the wrong people. He spoke quickly, as if speed might prevent me from interrupting. He did not apologize, not really. He explained. He said the business could still be saved if the banks agreed to restructure. He said the house might be refinanced if I helped. He said we could work together like before, just for a little while, until things stabilized. He said Tyler deserved parents who could cooperate. I listened without reacting. I had learned that silence makes people reveal more than questions ever do. When he finished, I told him I could not help. I did not raise my voice. I did not explain. I simply said no. That was the moment his calm finally broke. He asked how I could walk away after everything we built. He asked how I could let him fail. He asked if this was revenge. I told him the truth. I said he took exactly what he asked for. I said I did not take anything from him. I said I just stopped protecting him. He stared at me for a long time, trying to find the version of me he thought he knew. He asked when I changed. I told him I did not. I just stopped pretending. After he left, the calls became more frequent. Messages from his mother. Messages from relatives I had not spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to talk. Everyone wanted context. Everyone wanted me to fix something they were not willing to face themselves. I stayed quiet. Tyler asked one question a few days later. He asked if we were safe. I told him yes. That was all he needed to hear. Behind the scenes, Vincent's situation worsened. Creditors stopped negotiating. Deadlines passed. Court notices replaced phone calls. The business name that once opened doors now closed them. What Vincent never realized was that the most dangerous moment was not when everything collapsed. It was when he believed someone else would still step in and save him. And that moment had already passed. After Vincent left my apartment, the silence became louder than anything he had said. For the first time since the divorce, there were no messages waiting on my phone. No demands, no explanations, just space. That was when I knew the situation was worse than he had admitted. A week later, the first official notice arrived at his old address, then another, then several more. Banks were no longer asking questions. They were issuing deadlines. Missed payments were no longer temporary problems. They were defaults. The structure Vincent had relied on for years stopped bending and started breaking. He tried one last strategy. He contacted Nina directly. He claimed there were errors in the disclosures. He suggested numbers had been misunderstood. He asked if there was any way to reopen the agreement. Nina responded once. She attached the signed documents, the waiver, and the court order. She did not add commentary. There was nothing left to discuss. That was when the tone of his messages changed. The anger disappeared. The excuses stopped. What remained was fear. He asked about Tyler. He asked if I had noticed anything unusual in the accounts. He asked questions he should have asked years earlier. I did not answer. Tyler began spending less time with his father. Not because I stopped him, but because Vincent no longer had explanations that made sense. Plans were canceled. Promises were delayed. Confidence turned into irritation, then silence. Tyler noticed the pattern without needing it explained. One evening, Tyler asked me if I had known this would happen. I told him I knew it could. I told him that sometimes people build things without understanding what they are standing on. He did not ask anything else. Vincent filed for bankruptcy shortly after. It was quiet, procedural, and final. The business name disappeared from listings. The house entered foreclosure. The cars were returned. Everything that had once been used to measure success was reduced to paperwork and numbers. People stopped calling him. Invitations stopped arriving. The same circle that once praised him now avoided his name. He blamed everyone except himself. That part did not change. What did change was control. For the first time, Vincent had none, no leverage, no image to hide behind, no one left to absorb the consequences for him. And while his world narrowed, mine stabilized. No headlines, no celebration, just calm. That was when I understood the ending had already happened. Everything after this was only fallout. The fallout reached its peak quietly, not with drama but with absence. Vincent stopped calling entirely. Even his mother went silent. The noise that had surrounded him for years disappeared, leaving only consequences he could not shift onto anyone else. That silence confirmed what I already knew. There was nothing left to negotiate. A month later, Vincent tried once more, this time through Tyler. He asked to meet. He said he wanted to explain things properly. Tyler listened, then came home and told me his father sounded confused, not angry. That scared him more than yelling ever had. I told Tyler he did not have to fix anything for anyone. That responsibility was never his. Vincent's version of the story continued changing. To some people, he said the business failed because of bad timing. To others, he blamed advisors. Sometimes he blamed me. None of it mattered. The documents did not change. The court order did not change. Reality stayed exactly where it was. Diane reached out once, weeks after everything collapsed. Her message was short and apologetic. She said she never thought things would go this far. She said she felt used. She asked if we could talk. I read it and did not reply. Some explanations arrived too late to be useful. Tyler began asking different questions, not about the divorce but about the future. School, plans, stability. That was how I knew he had stopped waiting for things to return to what they were. He had accepted what was real. Vincent tried to rebuild his image online. New posts, vague messages about growth and lessons learned. They did not land the way he expected. People respond to confidence, not damage control. Eventually, he stopped posting too. What remained was the quiet understanding that everything he once used to define himself was gone. Not taken, not stolen, signed away. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt distance. The kind that makes events feel finished even if time keeps moving. Vincent was no longer part of my decisions, my planning, or my concerns. He existed somewhere else, dealing with outcomes he had chosen. The story people believed at the beginning was wrong. I was never the one who lost everything. I was the one who stepped aside and let the truth catch up. And the truth, once it arrives, does not ask permission to stay. The last time I saw Vincent before everything fully ended was at Tyler's school event. He arrived late and left early. He avoided conversations. He avoided eye contact. The confidence that once filled every room with him was gone, replaced by careful movements and short answers. People noticed. They always do. After that, he disappeared from our routines. Visits became irregular. Calls became rare. When he did speak to Tyler, his words felt rehearsed, like he was still trying to explain a version of himself that no longer existed. Tyler listened politely and shared little. He had learned the difference between attention and reliability. Around the same time, letters stopped coming to my address. Everything related to Vincent went elsewhere now. Creditors, courts, and lawyers had no reason to involve me. That separation was final. Clean, silent. One afternoon, Nina called to confirm there were no pending issues left. No appeals, no motions, no loose ends. She said the file was closed. When she said it, I felt something settle. Not relief, completion. Vincent tried once more to reach me after that. One message. Short. He said he wished things had gone differently. He said he never thought I would let it happen like this. I read it once and deleted it. He still believed someone had allowed this outcome, as if responsibility could be reassigned. Tyler asked me that night if people ever realize what they are losing while it is happening. I told him most people do not. They realize it only after they believe it is safe to stop paying attention. He nodded, like he already knew. The rumors faded quickly. People moved on. There was nothing exciting about financial collapse once the shock wore off. Vincent became a cautionary reference instead of a story, someone people used to know. What remained was the quiet knowledge that every step had landed exactly where it was meant to. Vincent had wanted ownership without understanding cost. He had wanted control without accountability. When given both, he could not carry them. I did not rebuild loudly. I did not announce anything. I focused on what worked and ignored what did not. Stability replaced urgency. Predictability replaced chaos. The suspense was over for everyone else. For Vincent, it had only just begun. The real consequences reached Vincent slowly, then all at once. Bankruptcy did not erase what followed it. It only rearranged the damage. Certain debts survived. Personal guarantees he had signed years earlier resurfaced. Agreements he barely remembered came back with dates, signatures, and penalties attached. He tried working again. Smaller projects, short-term consulting, nothing stayed. His name no longer opened doors. People checked records now. People asked questions. He was no longer the man with momentum. He was the man with explanations. One afternoon, Tyler told me his father had asked him if he could move in with us for a while. Not permanently, just until things settled. Tyler did not answer him. He came home and told me instead. I told him he did not need to respond at all. Vincent never asked again. That was the moment it became clear Vincent still believed proximity meant access. That family meant rescue. That consequences could be paused if he stood close enough to someone stable. He had not learned the difference between support and dependence. Lorraine reached out soon after. Her message was careful, softer than before. She said she did not know the situation was this serious. She said she hoped we could speak. I did not reply. Her silence over the years had been loud enough. Vincent's remaining connections faded quietly. Friends stopped inviting him. Former partners avoided him. People who once praised his ambition now described him as reckless. The narrative changed without needing my input. Tyler watched all of this without asking questions. He noticed who showed up and who disappeared. He learned who spoke loudly and who followed through. He learned more in those months than any lecture could have taught him. Vincent sent one final message late at night. He said he felt like his life had been taken from him. He said he never imagined it would end this way. I did not respond. The life he lost was the one built on avoidance. The one he kept was the one he had earned. What remained was a distance that could not be crossed by regret. The suspense Vincent lived with was no longer about money or reputation. It was about understanding that no one was coming to undo what he had signed himself into. And that understanding had no appeal process. Time stopped working in Vincent's favor. Every week that passed made things worse, not better. Deadlines expired. Temporary arrangements ended. What he had once called setbacks became permanent limits. He was no longer waiting for recovery. He was managing decline. One afternoon, Tyler came home quieter than usual. Vincent had told him he might need to move far away for work. Different city, different schedule. He said it casually, like it was an opportunity. Tyler heard it for what it was, disappearance dressed as ambition. He did not argue. He did not ask questions. He simply nodded and changed the subject. That night, Vincent sent me a long message, longer than any before. He said he was scared. He said he had never been alone like this. He said he thought marriage meant someone would stay no matter what. He said he was drowning. I read it once. I did not reply. A few days later, I heard he had sold what little he could without permission from creditors. Electronics, furniture, anything not already claimed. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. He had confused movement with progress again. The final legal notice came shortly after. A date, a requirement to appear, consequences that no longer involved negotiation. Vincent missed the appointment. He said later he forgot. No one believed him. Tyler stopped expecting anything from his father after that. No anger, no disappointment, just distance. The kind that settles when hope has been exhausted. Vincent tried reaching out again, this time asking for advice. Not help, advice. He wanted to know what he should do next. I almost laughed when I read it. For years, he had believed I existed to manage what he ignored. Even now, that belief remained. I did not answer. The suspense shifted then. It was no longer about whether Vincent would recover. It was about how far he would fall before he stopped pretending he was still in control. And that fall was not finished yet. Vincent's disappearance did not happen all at once. It happened in pieces. First, he stopped answering calls, then his number changed. Then people stopped knowing where he was staying. Stories circulated, none of them confirmed. Temporary jobs, short leases. Friends who let him stay for a few weeks and then asked him to leave. Each version sounded unfinished. Tyler heard things through classmates and parents who whispered without meaning to. He never repeated details, only conclusions. He said his father seemed tired. He said people felt uncomfortable around him. He said no one trusted what Vincent promised anymore. That mattered more than money ever had. One evening, Vincent called from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. His voice sounded flat. Not emotional, not angry, just stripped down. He said he finally understood what had happened. He said he had spent months trying to prove the situation was unfair. He said every explanation ended in the same place. His name, his signature, his decisions. He asked me how long I had known. I told him the truth, 3 years. The silence after that answer was long. He did not accuse me, he did not argue, he said nothing. Then he asked why I stayed quiet. I told him I was protecting my son. That was the first time he did not respond immediately. When he finally spoke, he said he never thought I was capable of that. He said he underestimated me. I told him that was the problem. He ended the call without saying goodbye. After that, he stopped reaching out entirely. The consequences settled into permanence. Bankruptcy closed doors permanently. His credit followed him everywhere. Every attempt to restart required explanations he could not avoid. People listened politely and declined quietly. He was no longer dangerous. He was inconvenient. Tyler moved on faster than I expected. He adjusted his expectations. He planned without including his father. He stopped asking questions about what might happen next. That told me everything I needed to know. Vincent faded into the background of his own story, not defeated loudly, just replaced by reality. The suspense people expected never came. There was no final argument, no dramatic confrontation, just the slow realization that control, once lost, does not return just because someone regrets losing it. And for Vincent, that realization was the hardest part to live with. Months passed without hearing Vincent's name, and that was how I knew things had settled into their final shape. When people stop talking, it means there is nothing left to speculate about. The outcome is clear. Vincent had become ordinary in the worst way possible, not misunderstood, not unlucky, just responsible. The only trace of him that remained was paperwork. Occasional notices forwarded to old addresses. Legal confirmations that processes were complete. Nothing dramatic, just endings recorded in files and databases that would never forget his name. One afternoon, Tyler told me he had seen his father by chance. Vincent had been standing outside a small office building, waiting, no suit, no confidence, just time. Tyler said Vincent smiled and asked how school was going. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. Vincent did not ask for a visit, he did not ask for help. He simply said he hoped Tyler was doing well. Tyler said it felt like meeting someone he used to know. That was when I understood Vincent had finally accepted the shape of his life. He was no longer trying to reclaim anything. He was learning how to exist inside what remained. The realization did not bring relief. It brought distance. The kind that cannot be crossed by apologies or explanations. The kind that forms when accountability arrives too late to change outcomes. I never saw Vincent again after that. There was no final conversation, no closure scene, just absence. And absence, once it settles, does not demand attention. Tyler adjusted fully after that encounter. He stopped waiting for calls. He stopped checking his phone. He focused on what was directly in front of him. His world grew smaller, then steadier. The suspense people imagine in stories like this is usually explosive, but real endings are quiet. They arrive after all the noise has failed. They stay because nothing challenges them anymore. Vincent had wanted everything. When he finally had it, he could not carry the weight. And when he put it down, there was nothing left to pick up. Only what remained. And what remained was final. I thought that would be the end, but consequences have a way of circling back when someone still refuses to accept them fully. Vincent reappeared months later in a way I did not expect. Not through calls or messages, through a legal notice, one final attempt to reopen what had already been sealed. He claimed new information had surfaced. He claimed misrepresentation. He claimed emotional pressure. The wording was careful, almost respectful, but the intention was clear. He wanted another chance to shift responsibility, another chance to escape what he had signed. Nina handled it without involving me. She sent back copies of the same documents Vincent had already seen. The same signatures, the same waiver. The same court order. The response was short. There was no legal basis. No procedural error, no opening. Vincent's filing was dismissed without a hearing. That rejection did something permanent. It closed the last door he believed might still open. After that, there were no more attempts. No more angles, no more explanations waiting to be heard. Tyler learned about it indirectly. He asked me once if his father was still trying to fix things. I told him no. I told him it was finished. He nodded, not relieved, not upset, just settled. Not long after, Vincent lost the last professional license connected to his business. It did not make headlines. It was administrative. A quiet consequence of unpaid obligations and unresolved filings. His name was removed from registries. That mattered more than money ever could. People stopped using his story as gossip. They stopped using it as warning. They simply stopped using it at all. Vincent was no longer a reference point. He was background. The suspense that once surrounded him disappeared completely. No one was waiting to see what he would do next. There was nothing left to anticipate. What remained was stability on my side. Predictable days, clear boundaries, no interruptions. Tyler focused on his future without looking over his shoulder. He stopped associating adulthood with chaos. Vincent had believed the worst thing that could happen was losing assets. He was wrong. The worst thing was becoming irrelevant to the life he once controlled. And irrelevance, unlike loss, cannot be argued with. The last thread connecting Vincent to my life snapped without warning. It was not dramatic. There was no argument or final demand. It happened when Tyler came home one afternoon and told me his father was moving again. Another city, another temporary plan, another attempt to outrun a reputation that followed him everywhere. Tyler did not ask what it meant for him. He already knew. Distance had become normal. Expectations had adjusted. Vincent was no longer a presence that shaped decisions. He was information, passed briefly, then forgotten. Around the same time, I was asked to confirm something for a routine form: marital history, financial liability. I checked the boxes, signed my name, and realized there was nothing left to explain. Every record matched reality. No loose ends. No shared obligations. The separation was complete in ways that mattered. Vincent sent one final message after that, not asking for help, not blaming, just a sentence. He said he hoped Tyler would understand him one day. I did not forward it. Tyler did not need more explanations. He needed consistency, not narratives. What Vincent never understood was that understanding does not repair damage. It only explains it. And explanation without accountability changes nothing. People who once avoided the topic began speaking freely again, not about Vincent, but around him. Life moved on. New priorities replaced old drama. The story that once felt heavy lost its weight when it stopped affecting outcomes. Tyler grew steadier. His confidence returned in ways that did not need encouragement. He trusted routines. He trusted follow-through. He trusted silence more than promises. Watching that happen confirmed everything I had done. Vincent became someone who existed in the past tense. Someone I used to know. Someone who once believed control could replace responsibility. The suspense was no longer about consequences. It was about closure. And closure arrived without announcement, without apology, without ceremony. It arrived when Vincent stopped mattering to the future we were already living. The last time Vincent tried to reach me, I did not know it would be the last. There was no warning, no build-up. His name appeared on my screen after months of silence. I let it ring until it stopped. He did not try again. That was how I knew he finally understood something he had avoided his entire life. There was no one left to convince. Later, I heard he had settled into a small rented place near where he worked temporary contracts. Nothing stable, nothing long-term. People said he kept to himself now. No stories, no confidence, just routine. The kind that exists when ambition has nowhere left to go. Tyler stopped asking about him completely, not out of anger, out of clarity. He had learned who showed up and who disappeared. That lesson stayed with him quietly, shaping his choices without needing explanation. He focused on school, on plans, on what came next. His future was no longer tied to uncertainty. One evening, I sat alone and realized something important. There was no victory to celebrate, no moment that needed revisiting. The suspense that once filled every decision was gone. In its place was certainty. Everything had landed exactly where it was supposed to. Vincent had taken everything he demanded, every asset, every obligation, every consequence. Nothing had been hidden from him, nothing had been taken behind his back. He signed for it all willingly, confidently, and without hesitation. The only surprise was that responsibility does not disappear when someone stops believing in it. I did not rebuild loudly. I did not announce a new chapter. I simply lived inside the space that had finally become mine. Stable, predictable, quiet, Tyler felt it too. The tension that once filled our days was gone. Nothing was waiting to collapse anymore. Some stories end with confrontation. This one ended with distance, with understanding arriving too late to change anything, with a man who asked for everything discovering what that truly meant. And me, I walked forward without looking back, not because I won, but because there was nothing left behind worth returning to. You have reached the end of the text.